Another win off of the Four Nations break, and maybe we're on to something here. The Sabres are on a run, especially at home. We'll talk Sabres and Ducks. Also, Dalene, Byram as a pair, and the Ovechkin chase continuing. All ahead on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast, and thanks for making us your first listen every day. You everydayers, thanks for coming back. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. That does include watching the show on our YouTube channel, just Locked On Sabres, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Sneaky Joe DiBiase, the day after a Sabre win. Another one. That is 2 in a row. That is 6 of the last 7. And that is a 6-game streak at home for the Buffalo Sabres. Their longest win streak on home ice since the 10-game win streak in 2018. It has been 6.5 years since the Sabres have had a streak like this on home ice. They've been a bad home team at times in the past. Even 2 years ago, when they missed the playoffs by 1 point. They were not a good team at home. Well, they certainly have been as of late, and I'm very excited to talk about this game, it being a win, because it very easily could have been one of the more frustrating games of the year. We'll get to that. We'll get to, I want to get to the defense pair of Rasmus Dahlin and Byram. How awesome they were to watch yesterday. And their key to this late season run, if they're able to put one together, it still is an if, and going into the future, because I love watching this defense pair, and I just don't know how much longer we're going to be able to watch it. So that, and then I want to go around the league a little bit at the end of today's show and talk a little bit about Alex Ovechkin and his goal chase, trying to track down Wayne Gretzky, which I think he is going to do this season. He scored goal number 883 last night against the Calgary Flames. The Capitals lost that game, but one-timer from his office on the power play, a little bit lower than normal. I want to talk about Ovi a little bit later on. Sabres played the Capitals in a couple of weeks, but he probably won't be there by then, but there's also a slight chance. But let's kick off today's show. Before we can get to Sabres and Ducks, reminding you that you can check us out on our Locked On Sabres text club. If you are not already a subscriber and you want to become one, you head over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. That is the place to sign up. If you've got a comment, if you've got a question, throw it our way. If you are just looking for updates at practice and line combinations and injury stuff, or whether maybe it's a game you're going to miss and you just want goal updates, that's all available to you on our Locked On Sabres text club. Getting to yesterday's game, it was almost a super frustrating game. Not one where a bad break went against you, more one where you're outplaying the opponent and you're badly outplaying the opponent. That was happening through 40 minutes of action by the Sabres. And even more than that, especially 50 minutes of action. The Sabres were the better team in this 3-2 win. They 100% deserved to win. Although there's that deserve-o-meter out there, a money puck. Maybe it was more like 80%. I'm not sure. But the first period, the Sabres run out of the gate, and they were the better team, especially at 5-on-5. Now, there's a lesson to be learned here about the Sabres that we've been learning all year long, and it has contributed to why they are such a bad team in the standings and why they almost lost this game last night. 5-on-5, they're playing awesome, and they have been for a lot of the season. Last night against Anaheim, they come out of the gates in the opening 20 minutes of action, and what do all the numbers say? At 5-on-5, scoring chances, 22, or excuse me, not 22 for scoring chances, 22 for shot attempts. Shot attempts were 22 for Buffalo, 5 for Anaheim. 5 shots would not be a lot. 5 shot attempts by the Ducks in the first period. They only had one shot on goal at 5-on-5. There was 11 minutes of 5-on-5 hockey in that first period, and the Ducks had one shot on goal. Scoring chances in that first period, 10-1 in favor of the Sabres. High danger chances, 6-0 for the Sabres. Why were they down? Why were they down at the end of one period? They were down because Jordan Greenway takes a penalty that, I guess it's a penalty. He runs the guy over right in front of the net, and most times they're calling that, but not all times they're calling that. I like penalties like that. You're trying to impose your will, be physical, and I think it was a ticky-tack play. The second penalty, Rasmus Dahlin hooking, horrible call, so ticky-tack. I mean, there almost was nothing there at all. His stick was on the opponent's stick. I don't think it was on the hands of the guy even. Even if it was such a split-second action. I can't believe they called that penalty when you're already shorthanded. And I'm not Mr. Oh, no, call the rule book, but don't call the rule book if it's a power play already, or don't call the rule book if it's overtime, or if it's the final 2 minutes. I generally hate that in the NHL, but that's how the NHL works. The NHL operates as though if you are already on the man advantage, or if you are already shorthanded, you get liberties that you wouldn't at 5-on-5. You get breaks that you wouldn't at 5-on-5 because the refs don't want to call a second penalty and make it a 5-on-3. That is how they've operated in the National Hockey League for decades. And yet, the softest of calls that at 5-on-5 in the middle of a game should never be called is called to make it a 5-on-3, and the Ducks take a 1-0 lead. Egregious penalty by the officials. Not on Rasmus Dahlin at all. Dahlin was mad about it. Lindy Ruff was mad about it. So, first period ends, and aren't you frustrated? Sabres dominated the period, and they're down because of a stupid penalty call by the official. Second period was not domination. It was very even. Everything was even. Shot attempts 5-on-5, 13-10 in favor of Buffalo. Shots were 7-5. Scoring chances were actually 8-7 in favor of the Ducks. This is all even strength. Power play, though, again. And another power play goal by the Ducks. That was frustrating, the Mason McTavish goal, because I thought the Sabres on the kill, not the McTavish goal. McTavish goal was the first one. Leo Carlson, was the second one. I thought the Sabres penalty kill was great on that kill. Ryan McLeod, Jordan Greenway, they were right in their face. They were causing turnovers. The Ducks couldn't get set up, couldn't get scoring opportunities. They score it right at the end of that penalty. So that was frustrating. Now, you go into the third period, it's 2-0. You're still playing really well, but it's 2-0. I actually looked at FanDuel Sportsbook, and I was going to bet the Sabres, and I didn't. I just didn't pull the trigger, and I'm like, whatever. They're not going to win this game. But I looked at it. I went to go look to see what they were. And they come out of the gates as good as you possibly could ask. That third period by the Buffalo Sabres against the Ducks last night, I want to, maybe, can I actually even cut it in half? Can I narrow it down even more? The first 10 minutes of that third period last night against the Ducks has got to be in the conversation. And, my memory's not this good. I could look and really get into the weeds on research to find like what the real answer to this question is by the numbers. But I bet you'd have a hard time finding a 10-minute stretch of hockey anywhere in this Sabres season that is as good as that 10-minute stretch was to open against the Ducks. And that's where all three of the goals came. JJ Peterka, Alex Tuck, Henry Jokiharju, Dylan Cousins assisting on all three of those plays. The Peterka goal is a great passing sequence. Cousins with a power, who is down low, gets it up to Cousins, and good vision by Cousins to see Peterka on the other side, and he buries it. The next goal, man, I'm going to get to Dalene and Byram in a moment here because they were huge parts of this. The Sabres had a shift before Tuck scored that was as beautiful as hockey has ever played. You know, as beautiful as you'll ever see the sport, where a team is just got the other team on their heels. You can't get the puck from them. They're moving the puck around. They're getting scoring chances. They're the first to pucks after they've taken a shot and there's a rebound or it's missed the net. They're just maintaining possession. Blitzkrieg right after go after the net. Keep going after the goalie. Keep peppering them. The Sabres had a shift like that. And I think it was the Cousins-Quinn line that was out there with Dalene and Byram. And I couldn't believe they didn't score. I sent a text to our text club that was as amazing as I've ever seen them play. And I can't believe they didn't score. And as I'm hitting send, bam, there's the Alex Tuch goal. They kept the pressure going after the line change. They got back into the zone. Tuch, very smart play by him, trying to pin the puck between Dostal, the goaltender, and the post, even though he's behind the net. There was room to do it. Dostal wasn't on the short side like he should have been. And Tuch almost banks it in off of him, but good job by him to follow around the net and follow up on the play, to stay near the net so that when he's behind the net and he sees the puck is loose and it hasn't gone in, that he is able to use his reach to get to the open puck and get there first to whack it in. That was goal number 2, tie hockey game. Everybody, I bet, believed right then and there they were going to win the game because they'd been playing great, and now they've tied the game. All the momentum is in the Sabres' favor. And then the Jokiharju shot. I was actually listening with the sound down, so I missed Dan Dunleavy say this, but I tweeted it out after and then realized everyone was telling me that Dunleavy actually, like, call of the year, right? Like, prediction of the year from him. Henri Jokiharju scores this goal from almost the same spot he scored at the Four Nations tournament for Finland against Team USA. It's along the wall. You know, he's got the short side available, and this one he roofs it. I actually thought Dostal pushing the net back a little bit, trying to hug the short side, kind of like the Tuch goal. He just wasn't comfortable on that angle in that third period. 2 goals went in on it, right? He kind of pushes the net back enough, even that subtle movement, to open up the goal for Jokiharju. But it's an amazing shot, top shelf, his third of the year. Cousins got his 3rd assist on the night. It was a secondary assist, but still. And then it's 3-2. And sure, it was a little stressful at the end, right? It felt like the Ducks maybe were going to tie it in the final minute or two. But you look up at the end of the day, and that period, the Sabres, look, here's some of the numbers on that third period. They end up with, I'll do 5-on-5 here. There was only 1 penalty in the third anyway, and it didn't really make much of a difference. Shot attempts in the third, 32-13 in favor of the Sabres. Shots, 18-4 in favor of the Sabres. Scoring chances, this is actually an interesting number. I don't know if I've ever seen this. Scoring chances were 18-4. Okay, so does that mean every shot in that period, all 22 were scoring chances? That is a little strange. Sometimes scoring chances don't have to go on net, so maybe not. And then the high danger chances in that period were 9-1 in favor of the Sabres. End of the day, what do you get? They outshot them 35-18. Expected goals in this game were 5.1 for the Sabres to 2.2. They dominated the game beginning to end with a bit of a break in the second period, and they deserved to win the hockey game despite finding themselves down 2-0. That's a second straight win out of the break. That is a 6th straight home win. And this is why I said I think they're going to win this game. And I think they're going to get close here. I think they're going to start to go on a little bit of a run. I'm not picking them to make the playoffs. And I still am not sure they're going to get within like 6. But I think they're going to get to around 6 points out because they're healthy. The lineup is fully formed. Dahlin is healthy. He and Byram are playing amazing. I can't wait to talk about that next. Like, everything has kind of come together here. I think they're going to get some results. And that was another indication that not only are you getting the results, but the process is good. The play is good. This wasn't, oh, you got steamrolled or you were really being protective, very conservative, and you got a special teams goal and another one went off a leg and you won a low-scoring game or you goalied the other team. Like, no, this game wasn't any of this. This was just 2 hockey teams on the ice at the same time, and you were the better one. you were the better one. And there was no debating that you were the better one, even if the scoreboard had ended up reading the other way around. So high danger chances, by the way, in this game in total, 16-1. 16-1. Dominance by the Sabres, even though they only won by 1. When we come back, speaking of dominance, Dalene and Byram in this game. Unbelievable, these two. I'm going to talk about them when we come back. And whether this is something we can hope to have for the long term. That when we return here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Been in a spot where you need to hire the right hire, like yesterday. There's pressure on. Every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now, you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, the Sabres win 3-2. They now sit 11 points out of the wild card spot. You might be asking, oh wait, they were 11 points out, right? They were, but you had a win by the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have leapfrogged Ottawa for a playoff spot, and they sit currently with 64 points this in 58 games. The Sabres with 53 points in 56 games. That is 2 games in hand, down 11. You know, the point system really does make you feel farther away. It is reality, but imagine if they didn't have a point system and they just went on wins. That's it. Make it simple. Overtime, you don't get anything for overtime loss. It's loss. It's like the NFL. You don't get anything for it. We're just going to count wins. Because if they'd done that, NBA does that too, right? Just count the wins. If they'd done that, Sabres would be 4 games out of the playoffs. It doesn't that just, I don't know, it just sounds like you're not as far out. Playoff odds, by the way, updating you on that at Money Puck, 2.3%. So they didn't really go up. They went up by 0.2 in the night. Columbus winning, I'm sure, kind of evened out the Sabres win. But anyways, 2 individuals that were just awesome last night and so fun to watch. That number 1 pair that the Sabres currently have cooking, that they've had going for a long time now this season, Rasmus Dahlin and Byram, have been super fun to watch whenever they are out there. And that's really the point that I want to get across here. And that's not to say that they are not also great, because they absolutely are. If you look at their numbers in this game against Anaheim, like whenever they're on the ice, the Sabres have the puck. The Sabres are generating chances. And they're very good at actually breaking up plays as well. Dalene and Byram are, I think, the most dynamic defense pair I've ever seen play for the Buffalo Sabres. And I do not think that is, living in the moment and recency bias. When you watch them, I mean, Dalene obviously is as good at holding onto the puck as anybody in the sport, because he's so strong in his skates. He is such a good stick handler. He understands spacing as well as any player in hockey. And that's actually a super important trait to have as a hockey player. Super important, especially when you're one of the guys that's supposed to control the pace of the game, the flow of the game, and kind of who has it, who has the puck. Do you have it or does your opponent have it? You got to be smart with spacing. And Dahlin's elite at it. And then you have Byram, who is fine, good in all of those areas too. But on top of it, maybe even more than Dalene, he is a phenomenal skater, right? Jumps up in the plays and does it with speed and skill. He generates his own chances offensively. He buries pucks when he gets opportunities. He's got a very good shot for a defenseman. And a lot of his goals this year have not actually even really come from the point. They've come from him jumping up in a play and hitting a one-timer, or, hitting a puck from the slot on a rebound. Like, he's scoring where forwards often score at times this year. So that combination of those two skill sets has it so that, and because they're both offensive in nature, but they're different kinds of offensive, and they're both good enough on D. Dahlin's better than Byram, more physical than Byram, but both are very strong on their own end, that it's not really like you're putting two one-dimensional offensive defensemen together. They're both balanced, complete players. One, again, like, I'm not saying Byram is as good as Dalene. I do think Dahlin is a good amount better, but those two together is just a delight. And I tweeted that out and posted it in our text club. Like, I think this is the most fun to watch Sabres defense pair as I've ever seen. What defense pair in Sabre history with two guys have you ever seen with more skill than this? The best I could come up with was when Brian Campbell and Euro Spacek played together in 2007, because Campbell was, the spinorama, carrying the puck, very good vision. He had a good shot too. And Spacek was just a bomb from the point, right? Like, he was not the skater or the puck carrier or the playmaker that Campbell was, but his shot, I mean, I don't know that we had player tracking in any form back then that could tell you how fast his slap shot was, but it felt like he had a 100-mile-per-hour slap shot. Like, that's the closest I could get. And I do think Byram and Dalene tops that. Is there a pairing with Phil Housley back in the 80s and the early 90s that fits this profile? But I'm not good enough with Sabre history to tell you who his partner would have been that fits this description. You could go to, like, Alexei Zhitnik and Dmitry Kalinin, but come on, that's not living up to this. One really good suggestion that a texter had was actually Tyler Myers and Henrik Tallinder in 2010. That is Myers' rookie year. Tallinder is still a very good player at that point. And that year, those two together were amazing. But not like this. This is that long shift that I referenced before the tuck goal in the third period against the Ducks. That 2-minute shift where they're buzzing around the zone and the Ducks just simply can't get the puck, and you're getting chance after chance after chance. There are 5 Sabres on the ice. And Dylan Cousins, Jack Quinn, maybe Jason Zucker was the other one. Maybe it was Peterka at that point in time. Doesn't even matter. You got 5 guys on the ice. There are 10 players on the ice, really. 10 players on the ice, including the Ducks. And for 2 minutes plus, it's like you just see it. The 2 most skilled guys on the entire ice surface are the Sabres' 2 defensemen. They're more skilled than the 3 forwards that are out there. They're more skilled than all 5 of the Ducks that are out there. And that is something that there are not many teams in the league that can roll out a pair like that and get the same, level of talent. Some can, not many. Are we going to see this for a long time, though? That's a good question, because Byram's got a contract coming up. We're going to talk plenty about that as the season winds down and definitely into the offseason. I hazard to guess he is going to be, assuming there's no like Elias Pettersson trade coming before then, that Byram is going to be the individual we talk the most about once the season ends, because he's a restricted free agent. You only have 1 year of control. He's a very good player, a great player. And I've got right now almost no confidence that he's going to want to stay long-term. That is purely speculative. I have no idea what his motivation is. It's a worry of mine, though, that he just doesn't want to stay here. We'll see, right? That's the best I can do for you right now. But I hope that he stays. I hope that they're able to get a deal done, because I would love to see these 2 players play together for the long haul, for years and years and years together. And the last thing I'll say on this, and then I want to get to Ovechkin stuff. Byram, there are a lot of good numbers out there. NT Ryder on Twitter, Chad, all the good numbers guys that are in Sabres Twitter. They pointed out to me a couple weeks ago, I made a mistake when talking about Byram, because Byram, when I watch him play, I feel like he's got number 1 defenseman capabilities. But he did have that shot, and he played in that role a lot during the 13-game losing streak. Dahlin missed a lot of those games, and it didn't go well at all. And you can isolate Byram's numbers with and without Dahlin. And without Dahlin, it's kind of been a disaster. But because he's so good with Dahlin, when it comes to how much should I pay him, what should the number be, should I be willing to give him $8.5 million a year or more? Do I even care what he does without Dahlin? You should care a little bit, but if he is the perfect partner for your most important player, what's that worth to you? Because to me, that on its own should be worth $8+ million a year. Knowing that, sure, my downside is if I separate him from Dahlin, I'm not getting very good results. I'd hope to do better than they've done, but the recent, track record says you're not getting very good results. But because that mesh of his speed, his scoring, his aggressiveness as a defenseman combined with Dahlin's ability to hold onto the puck and understand space, just they are such a good combination to me that I would be okay putting his results without Dahlin kind of off to the side and still be willing to pay him a good amount of money, $8.5 or more million. I have to think that's at least what it would cost to get him to stay. All right, that's going to do it for this portion of the show. When we come back, Alex Ovechkin. Let's go around the league a little bit. He scored again last night. It's going to happen, and it's going to be one of the coolest moments in hockey history. Talk about when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres next are in action tomorrow, Thursday night, against the Carolina Hurricanes. Meanwhile, in Washington, the Capitals playing last night. They're off till tomorrow when they'll play the St. Louis Blues. They lose 3-1 last night to the Calgary Flames, but that one goal was Alex Ovechkin scoring a one-timer on the power play. Kind of a tough angle, a little bit lower in that faceoff circle than he normally hangs out at. Ovechkin now at 883 goals for his NHL career. He is 12 from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record. And if you look at what he needs to do to end the season, to close the season with the record, he needs to be at about a 40-goal pace the rest of the way. A 40-goal pace for 82 games. And this year, so far, 30 goals in 42 games. He's on like a 58-goal pace. So he doesn't even have to do as good as he's been doing, which is, 4 goals in his last 2 games, and you can just go run down the amount of goals he has in certain time spans, and it's been pretty unbelievable to watch Ovechkin at age 39 still be arguably the greatest goal scorer in the sport. Not even just all time. Like that is solidified. He is the greatest goal scorer in NHL history. You could argue he is still the greatest goal scorer in the NHL at 39 years old. If he doesn't break his leg, break his fibula, I think he broke earlier in the year. If that didn't happen, he'd probably already have the record, or we'd be like a game or 2 away. Instead, might be close by the end of the year, but he's well on track to break it. Now, if you look at when he's on track to break it, he's on track to break it around the first week of April when they play Carolina, Chicago, New York, that's the Islanders at the Islanders. And you start to look at, okay, when could he break it? When would it be cool for him to break it versus other games? When would you want him to do it? If you're the Capitals, do you want it to be at home? I think you absolutely want it to be at home. Or, because they play at home against the Sabres on March 30th. And there's a real chance that actually ends up being the game. He's going to have to keep rolling here, though, to get there. That'll be a 3:00 Sunday game. That's kind of perfect. March 30th, 3:00. Now, you will be competing, I believe, with the college basketball tournament at that point. And maybe the NHL doesn't love the idea of that. I just saw a Sunday afternoon game and thought, oh, you throw that baby on ABC and you sell it as Ovi trying to break the record, and as they play the Buffalo Sabres. That has 2 road games after, and then you look at it and it's okay, home games would be cool, and then finally, I think it would be a pretty cool moment. And again, he'd have to slow down for this to happen, and it'd be stressful, right? You want to see it happen this year, or do you? This is a good debate. Do you want to see him break it this year if it comes down to like the final game? The final game of his season is at Pittsburgh. Capitals at Penguins to close the regular season. And that would be pretty sweet in its own name. You going to your arch nemesis's building and against your career rival, Sidney Crosby, and breaking the record in their building. And I don't even think there would have to be animosity towards it. You know, it'd be like when because Penguins Capitals, sure, it's a rivalry. It's not Red Sox Yankees. And what did we get in Red Sox Yankees once upon a time? Derek Jeter went to Boston in his final game of his career, and he got an ovation from the Boston fans. Like, respect. Like, we've hated you for 15, 20 years. We will always hate your guts. But in this one instance, time to show respect. All right, respect, Derek Jeter. Red Sox fans did that once upon a time. And in my opinion, if Ovechkin happened to break the record in Pittsburgh, you'd get the same thing. You'd absolutely get the same thing. It would be, all right, we've hated you. We've believed our guy's better. We've been at each other, fighting each other for 20 years since these two guys entered the league. But you know what? Respect. Respect for Alex Ovechkin. You'd get that. And that would be pretty cool. It'd be pretty heartfelt, I think. And you're going to get, after he breaks the record, the opposing team lining up to shake his hand. That's going to happen. And I'm absolutely positive that the NHL, ESPN already has that game, by the way. It's a Thursday night. I am absolutely positive what the league wants is that photograph of Crosby and Ovechkin shaking hands immediately after Ovi has broke the record. It's like, you ever watch the movie Ford versus Ferrari? Ford versus Ferrari. It's about the racing team, the Ford racing team at Le Mans back in the 50s, I think. And they wanted to beat Ferrari, so they built these Ford GT race cars, and they were winning the race. And they kind of manufacture the moment a little bit. At the end of the race, the Ford team says, hey, the guy who's way out in front, slow down, let our 2 Ford cars in second and third catch up, and we're going to cross the finish line together for the photograph of it, for the moment of it. We're all going to cross the line together. And I don't think you'd get the same type of manufacturing here from the NHL, but I guarantee you Gary Bettman and Bill Daly and the league, is the TV partners, are all rooting hard for that game to be the game, so that you get that moment with Crosby at the end of it. And it kind of becomes like a made-for-TV, a made-for-movie moment. Otherwise, imagine he doesn't break the record that day, and it's still live with him being 1 away. Imagine the whole offseason being that Ovechkin's 1 away, and now no one's ever cared more about the NHL schedule release than this offseason, if that were to happen, because now the NHL can handpick who they want it to be against. My guess is they'd just pick Pittsburgh again. Maybe this time they'd have it be in DC, though, instead of Pittsburgh. But that to me, I think the league wants one of those two things to happen. I don't think they're going to get their wish, because I think he's going to break it before that. But I bet they either want him to break it in Pittsburgh at the end of the season, or they want him to be 1 away going into the summer, so that they can handpick the opponent in the first game of the year, the second game of the year, and even the third game of next year. But either way, it's super cool, and I think it's the most fun hockey story of the year, even more than international hockey finally getting back with the 4 nations. All right, we'll talk more about Ovi, and of course, we'll get back to the Sabres tomorrow. We will talk some about the Carolina matchup. More Amerks updates coming your way. They'll get back to action. And deadline, rocking and rolling with deadline stuff after this show. Zucker. I had a good question about Jason Zucker for the texters and the tweeters, and we'll bring it up on the show tomorrow. Greenway, a lot of deadline stuff to get to coming up. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast, making us your first listen. Now, go make your second listen. Locked On NHL, all your league-wide topics, including Ovechkin, bring you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage that you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We will chat tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.